So I want to move on to speak about Xabi Alonso and his future, Conor. There's a report this week saying he's on a list for Chelsea as a potential target. But I read another piece that said if the right job doesn't come up for Alonso this summer, that he's still young enough that he could probably even wait a little bit longer. Now, it doesn't feel like he wants to wait any longer, if I'm being honest, because he's had quite a while away from it now, enough time to get a proper break and plan for the future. So let's start off with the links to Chelsea. It would be very dubious if he takes that job after Madrid, walking in from one unsettled club to another club. Do you think there's any way Chelsea could convince him to take up that role?
I think it would involve an absolute truckload of cash, I think, to get him involved in there. Because, like you said, absolute shit show at Madrid. Chelsea, not much better, to be honest. And, like, he needs a win now. Like, he can't go in and fail again. Like, not say he failed at Madrid as such, but, like, two short stints as manager. It's kind of hard to come back from that. So I'd imagine he would be too smart to go in there unless it's, like, absolutely life-changing money put in front of him. But even aside from that, like, if he took the Chelsea job, does that kind of rule out Liverpool in the future as well? Like, I just can't see it, to be honest. I just think there's too many factors going against it for Alonso to end up there. I would be shocked, and I think there probably is something to that point that Doug Critchley made. I think it was him who said about Alonso waiting longer, because, like, what other jobs are there at the minute? Like, what other big clubs are looking for managers? And I think he ultimately will want to go to a big club again. He won't want to take a job in, like, the Europa League or anything like that. So I could definitely see him biding his time, but I think we just have to go in and just get him now. He's available. Just do it. There's nothing else to be said. Just go do it right now.
So, two things that I'd like to discuss, Chris. Let's take up Dougie Critchley's comments. As soon as I read that, my mind went to, is he hinting at Slot getting the boot after a few months here and Alonso just being patient and then maybe the Liverpool job comes up? Or was it just coincidental that he was talking about maybe Alonso, if he can't get the right job, just hanging off a bit? Where's your reading of this situation with Alonso and us? I mean, we've seen conflicting things this week. So James Pearce said there's a misconception that Xabi Alonso was the club's number one choice when he decided to stay one more year with Leverkusen. Then we seen somebody bring up a David Ornstein piece that said exactly that he was Liverpool's number one choice. So something doesn't smell right there. What do you think Alonso's head is at? Do you think Liverpool have any interest? Really? Do you think there is conversations behind the scenes, or is it just fan speculation again?
I think we'd be stupid to say that there hasn't been conversations. Like, I'm sure there would have been, like, even before Slot came in. Like, the whole thing was Alonso, Amorim, Slot. That was the three. And in the end, we ended up with, I think in the end, at that point, it was the right choice. And I still don't think it was a bad decision, because Alonso went and stayed another year at Leverkusen, got a load of experience, went to Real Madrid. Let's not forget, he won 24 of 34 matches at Real Madrid. Like, that's not a bad record, if we're being really honest.
And nobody got knocked out of training.
Wow, yeah.
No traumatic brain injuries were to be had there.
Yeah, so he's clearly a top class coach. Why cheapen yourself by going to Chelsea? I'll say this now. If you go to Chelsea right now, you are cheapening yourself, because you know for a fact, realistically, you're not going to go, unless you're an up-and-coming manager. I understand an up-and-coming manager go in there because, you know, it's a good chance to put yourself in the spotlight and then maybe get a chunky payout at the end of it. But realistically, they're not going to keep you for longer than a year or maybe two. Like, it's not a long-term thing. And Alonso strikes me as a guy who maybe wants to be involved in a long-term thing. And I think Liverpool's that situation. I think it just works perfectly. Now, whether, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with Company at Bayern in the long term, or you know, maybe even Real Madrid to go back. You know what they're like? They're just mental. But Liverpool's perfect for him right now, if you understand. Like, the only thing stopping him being in the Liverpool job is the fact that it's not available. When it becomes available, I think he is the number one choice and will be in there like a shot.
So, as you guys have been talking, Conor, I've been thinking about this, and I've been trying to think about it from his side. So if I'm Alonso and Liverpool come a knocking, if I'm being honest, one of the first questions I have is, who am I going to be working with for the next 2, 3, 4 years? Who's going to be my sporting director? Who am I going to be answering to? Who's going to be taking care of the recruitment? These are things that I think maybe semi-arrogantly as Liverpool fans, we only think about the connection Alonso has with the club, but there is a whole another career aspect to this as well. And it would be fair of him to ask those questions if he was coming into any job. And the Liverpool job, we know that there's only a guarantee of one more year with Hughes and Edwards around the club. We don't know what happens after that. So does that go against us maybe?
Probably does a little bit. I'd imagine the more important question will be, even aside from the exact personnel, would be like, am I going to be given control of the squad here? Like, what's my influence on transfers? What's my influence on, like, you've seen stuff with the Chelsea board basically telling Maresca not to use like certain players due to like injuries or fatigues and stuff like that. But I think like if he is given a guarantee that he is actually in charge and he will have an influence on transfers, I think that will be more important than like, is it going to be Richard Hughes? Will it be Julian Ward next year? God knows who's going to be in there. But I think ultimately, like, if he is given control and the power that he wants, I think that wouldn't be too much of an issue. But it is one of them things, like, you would rather have a long-term vision, a long-term plan, like, in place just to get people in, even players as well. I'm sure players would want to know what the long-term future of Liverpool looks like, or even the short-term future as well. Like, it's important. But I think if he's promised the control he wants, I think it wouldn't really be an issue, but it certainly doesn't help either.
And if we did change manager this summer or even early next season, Chris, looking around football at the minute, realistically, we're not going to get Luis Enrique. That's not going to happen. He's not going to move there. Klopp's not going to come back. So if you're Hughes and Edwards and you're just covering all bases, who are you looking at? Who are you maybe putting in your potential list?
That's really difficult in the current scheme of things. I mean, it depends what sort of way we want to go. Do we want to bring an up-and-coming manager in? Do we want to, Iraola's literally just about to leave Bournemouth and potentially go to Crystal Palace, by the way. I saw that today, which I think
would you take Iraola, though? Like, would that not be another roll of the dice manager? Like, there's no doubt about his coaching ability, but I feel like a hypocrite saying this, but it is different coming in to manage a Liverpool or a Manchester United. It just is.
100%. And that's why I think, like, in this current situation, we've got a guy who has won a Bundesliga title, who has got playing experience with the club, who clearly has affection with the club. I don't think there's anyone else who ticks the boxes as much as he does. I genuinely think my second choice would be Iraola, and I don't really want that. So therefore, like, it's almost like we've got a sort of 10 out of 10 person and then a 6 out of 10 guy. Like, we want to go for the 10 out of 10. But will he want us? I hope he does.
For me, Conor, as I've sat back and thought about this, and I will say I'm not the most in-depth, knowledgeable person on this particular coach, but I'd have to consider Nagelsmann just because of the brand of football, the philosophy that he keeps. And if he is going to potentially depart Germany, and we don't know after the World Cup, I think he would also be a credible name for Hughes and Edwards to be casting an eye over.
I was going to bring up Nagelsmann, yeah, because I've seen, like, there was reports back in like 2023, 24 and stuff. Like, Michael Edwards is a huge fan of Nagelsmann, so like, you shouldn't really overlook that. Like, maybe he is the top choice, and it is a case of waiting until after the World Cup and seeing where the lay of the land is. Maybe it is a case of we'll back Slot now, but if shit hits the fan, we'd probably be able to pull Nagelsmann out of Germany in like October if he's still there. Like, I think his contract is until like 2028 with Germany, so it's not coming to an end. But I'm sure he could be convinced of a new project if the job became available. And I do wonder, is that the play? Is he like the number one? Because Michael Edwards definitely a big fan. But then again, we keep coming back to this. If Michael Edwards isn't going to be here, does that even matter? So it's a weird one. I'd certainly have Nagelsmann fairly near the top. I don't think he'd be my number one exactly, but I wouldn't be unhappy if he came in. I'd prefer him over someone like an Iraola.
Well, now I'm going to put you both on the spot. Nagelsmann, Iraola, or Alonso? If you had to make a choice, if you're Mr. Sporting Director right now, you've decided after an end of season review that you need to move on from the current manager, which one of those three, if they're put in front of you, 3 CVs, are you pushing forward for the first conversation? Chris, let's come to you first because you look the most awkward.
Alonso. There's no awkwardness about it. Get the contract on the table, put whatever number of zeros.
Right, Rio, calm down.
Whatever zeros. Xabi's at the wheel, man. Honestly, I don't think there's any competition. I just think it works perfectly. And people, like, totally, like, genuinely, the thing he did at Leverkusen is one of the greatest managerial feats of the decade, right? He went invincible, beat Bayern Munich, won the cup, very nearly did the treble. That's an incredible feat. And then followed it up with a really unlucky spell at Real Madrid. I think he's going to be one of the world's top managers. If not, he's one of the world's top managers already. Put a contract on the table.
Well, I'll second everything Chris said. For me, it's Alonso for a few reasons. One, the gravitas, which he has. He's walked in there, European Championship winner twice, World Cup winner, Champions League winner, Bundesliga winner, La Liga winner, I believe, as well. And he just has the pedigree, and he will have the respect of everybody in there as well. So for me, maybe it's a bit of case of I know a bit more about him than Nagelsmann. So I would probably second what Chris said and go for Alonso, Nagelsmann 2, Iraola 3. Connor, for you?
I think I'd have to agree. I feel like if we went back to before Slot came in and we were saying bring in Alonso or Nagelsmann, I'd say Nagelsmann. But in this current moment with where the squad is at, like we just need a boost. And I think if Alonso comes in instantly, the fans are all behind him, the players will get behind him. I think if Nagelsmann came in, there'd be like a certain section of the fan base wouldn't be totally convinced by him, and that would be okay if we were like flying high and doing really well. But the fact that we're struggling so bad, the fact that the morale is so low, I think Alonso just pips it in for that factor and the fact that he's a wonderful coach as well. And it will take a little bit of rejigging with the squad, but I think in this current moment, Alonso would be the best choice.